Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I am your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels. Today we are assembling the Hamelin Core box. This is the second Malifaux 2nd Edition version, but they are the exact same models, so I just have an outdated box, that's it. So normally you would read Hamelin Core box. This is for the Outcast faction, the Plague keyword, specifically Hamelin's keyword. Our boy Hamelin here, the man in the back with the stick and the magic ghost rat things, as well as 3 stolen, his lovely little totems. Next, his henchman, the dog, a obedient wretch, there she is on the side, and then 4 Malifaux rats, which you can see some of them in the background there. But that is our artwork, our renders on the back. See Hamelin with a really complex looking magical effect, and then not too difficult looking models elsewhere. Alright, that is our renders. Now let's look at the sprues. Oh boy, I think I know where we're going to be spending most of our time. So here are our 4 rats. But then we've got Hamelin down here, the vast majority of his bits going on to this magical effect that a lot of people don't even end up using, but I'm going to assemble it for you anyways. Here is our obedient wretch, and then our 3 stolen and Nyx. So our order of assembly will be Hamelin, followed by the stolen, Nyx, the obedient wretch, and then the rats. Okay, let's pop them out. Alright, normally I would hold this with the name upright, but as you'll see in the instructions, they actually have the bits labeled in the instructions because there's just so many and they're very, very similar. So I'm going to hold the sprue like it shows in the instructions to make it easier for you. But we're going to go ahead and build the entirety of Hamelin himself first. So we'll take the body, we'll add the coat, do both the legs, arm. He got panpipes way over here, and his head. And once we're done with him, then we'll grab the main 2 magical effect bits, put them together, do this magical tail, and then we're going to go ahead and do everything in numerical order as it is listed in the instructions, just to make it a little bit easier. And I will keep reminding you, or keep showing you the sprue and all the things that we've taken it off for that time being. But I'm not going to go through each of them individually in order because that'd just be pointless, wasted time. So let's go ahead and look at the instructions and then get started with Hamelin's body. Here's his torso. Now add his coat. Coat is on. Looks fine. Just check our seams, make sure it's pressed on there as far as possible. Okay, next we're going to do the right leg and then the left leg. The panpipes, which go on his chest, and right arm, left arm, head. Alright, start with the right leg. Both right and left leg are going to attach to this peg that's just jutting out of his waist. So let's add the right leg. Now the left leg. Now he's got both legs. We can do the panpipes. Next, we're going to attach right here on the hole in his chest. And we want the slightly longer end to be the bottom. So we're looking at it upright. And we'll just turn it around and jam that into his chest. Well, they're sitting at an angle, but that's fine. Alright, now let's do the right arm, the one holding the staff. Something of note is that the staff apparently goes behind his leg, not in front of it. I had initially done it the wrong way, but just check the render. You'll see that it's going behind the leg. Alright, now let's do the left arm next. There's the arm. Now let's do the head. He's really tugging that chin, but it's a nice solid connection. Okay, now we can just set Hamelin down and get started on the real pain of the assembly. Let's first grab 2 halves of our main magical effect, as well as the tail. And here's the back of the magical effect. Now let's add the top of it, which should just slide on fairly easily like that. Now that our seam looks good, let's go ahead and do the tail. There is a more obvious flat side to it. so they'll just go together kind of like that. Okay, that's all together now. Oh boy. So we've got this big old sprue here. Sorry, I need to pull up the instructions for myself. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the labeling of the bits up in like one of the corners or something, just to give you a reminder of exactly what numbers I'm referencing, just because there's a lot here. So we are just going to go in numerical order, because it appears to be sort of an order they have it in the instructions, kind of a counterclockwise setup. So our first two bits is this is going to be number 1, and this is number 2, which creates a skull. And I believe those are going to fit right in here. I'll dry fit it before I confirm that, though. Here's bit number 1, and we'll add bit number 2, the lower jaw, in that hole. It doesn't really stab into the hole, but this is the back. We can see there, and we've got ourselves the face. Now, do you think we can actually shove it into this hole right here? Let me get that. Oh, there we go, like that. Our first head is glued in. Next is going to be number 3, which is an arm. It is going to glue right in there. Specifically, this arm. There it is. Check the seam on the back to make sure that looks good, and that will sort of correct any sort of gap you have in that where that arm attaches to the main magic thing. Also, look at the render. The render is very, very helpful. Next is going to be bit number 4, which is a horn. And that is going to fit right up in here. You see that? Nice little spot for it. There's the horn. That's what it looks like from the front. All right, next, bit number 5 is going to be another arm. It is going to cover up this connection point right there. That one went in more solidly than the other arm. Next is going to be bit 6, which is a face. And that one I think is going to set right there. There it is. It's turned ever so slightly. It's not staring forward. But you do see these 2 bumps on top of the skull that have nice little grooves in the magical effect to tell you the orientation of it. Our next is 7 and 8, and that is going to be a skull and jaw combination, which will end up going up here. So let's start with number 7, our skull. It's the one with the horn on it, and then let's add our jaw. That's what it looks like from the front. One more view of the back. Alright, now let's attach it to our magical effect. Pretty good. Number 9 is just a skull, no jaw, and it's going to fit right in there. Just for progress sake, this is what the sprue has left on it. Everything else probably should have been clipped out and attached by now. But I already cut out number 9, now let's attach it. Chompy skull is in. Next is going to be, I forgot my numbers, one sec. Number 10, and it's jaw number 11. So here's number 10. Now let's just add the jaw to it. And that's our weird connection, but got a very obvious open mouth. So everything looks fine except for the back, which is just how it's going to connect to the magical effect. And that spot is right here. Our magical effect is coming together quite nicely. Next will be 12 and 13, and they'll attach right here. But first, let's clip them off the screw and add the jaw to the skull. Right here is our skull. Now 13, the jaw. All right, that is what it looks like. Now we can go ahead and add it to our magical effect right in there. So many faces. Next, we've got 2 halves of a rat head in 14 and 15, and they're going to attach right in there. But of course, let's first attach, nope, this is 15, my bad. But we can attach 14 to it. Okey-doke. Now let's just jam it on our hole. Alright, a rat head is done. We've got a couple of arms next, 16 and 17. 16 is going to go right there. Weirdly, that is a left arm on the right side of the magical effect, but it appears to be the arm for this rat face man thing. Alright, one last review of the sprue of what we've got left. Now let's do our last arm, number 17, and that is going to go right in there. Probably would have been better to put this in before the other arm, but nothing a bit of poking couldn't fix. Alright, just a few more skulls left. 18 and 19 are going to go right in there. So let's grab our skull and then attach the jaw to it, shall we? Here's 18. Now let's add jaw of 19. Okay, now let's slap it onto our magical effect. Again, right there. And another one that probably should have waited for the other bits. Let's do this one before we do either of the arms. But again, also poking, wasn't too hard to get it in there. Next, our second to last head is going to be a rat. We've got 20 here, and now add 21 on top of it. It is a rat. And that is going to attach right here. It's a rat head. Okay, 2 skull bits, and then we're just going to jam it in our last connection point. This is 22, now add 23 the jaw, like so. Alright, now slap it in our hole. Alright, he's all done. So that means we're done with all of Hamelin, so now let's just try to get this in him on a 30mm base. Hamelin is completed. Overall, a extremely simple model if you only use the Hamelin part of Hamelin, and noticeably more difficult to base and keep upright if you're using the giant swarm of magical rat things. The plague swarm thing. Yeah, the plague swarm thing, the difficulty behind it is it's so many bits, and unless you are being very careful or you have this guide, you might slip up and put something in the wrong spot. But if you do have the guide and a bit of patience, it's not too bad. There was nothing in here that I had a real rough time of assembling, but I will say the hardest part was figuring out that some things probably should have gone in a different order than I did them. I just wanted to do a numerical order, and I had a little bit of difficulty with Hamelin's left leg, but that's me just kind of reaching. Anyways, again, you don't have to have the magical plague on there, and if you don't have it on there, then you don't have to worry about balancing it, because you can see I've taped it down, because otherwise he falls over. The lazy bum. Let's move on. Okay, here are our totems, the stolen, and their numbers don't line up at all with those in the instructions. We'll do them in instruction order, so that would be this stolen, which is marked as number 2, but it is in fact 1 on the instructions. And then stolen 3 here is stolen 2 in the instructions. We'll do that one next. And then stolen 3 is, this number 1 is stolen 3 in the instructions. So basically we're going right to left as far as assembly. So let's go ahead and look at our instructions, and then we'll get started with our order for our first stolen. Alright, we'll grab the torso first, combine both legs together, and then add that to the torso. Then we will do the right arm, the left arm, which includes the right hand and a knife of some kind, and then the head last. Here's our torso. There is a nub here that I believe is supposed to be there. That's a part of the connection. But we actually just set this down because we got to combine the 2 legs together first. So here is the right leg. Now let's add the left leg to it. It is not a very solid connection, so now let's plop the torso right on top of there to give it some stability. There you go. Make sure that gap around the waist is as closed as you can make it, which should fix his stance, but of course you can still put him down on flat surface to make sure that he is all good. Alright, next we're going to do the right arm. It will also connect to that connection point that is in his belly that's covered up by his forearm now. But let's now add our left arm and attach it to the right. Took a lot of fiddling from me, but I figured it out. Now we can just add the head and call him good. And we have a child. Let's put him on a base. Our first of the stolen is done. We're going to name this kid Ratthew. The hardest part for him was actually the left arm. It was just a little fiddly to get it to connect in the shoulder socket as well as connect to the right forearm. And the left leg was just a little bit hard to get it to stick into place. I kept knocking it out of place, so you might not have that issue. Anyway, let's move on. Next stolen is going to be even easier. Let's just grab the body. We'll add the, I think that's the right leg, and then the arms. Call her good. There's the body. Now our right leg is going to fit right back here, laying flat on the ground. It took me a bit of smushing to get it in there, but I did. Alright, our other bits, just his arm, her arms, going to fit right in there and in there. There we go. That angle more or less matches the render. It's in there pretty solidly. Let's put her on a base. Our second stolen is done. We're going to call this one Retrina. I actually had a bit of a difficulty with her leg getting it jammed in there, but the nice thing about plastic cement is it melted it enough for me to eventually squish it in there. The arms weren't too hard to get into place. I mean, 3 bits too, so it can't be too hard. Okay, let's move on. Our last stolen. We'll grab the body, do the left leg, the right leg. I think that's them. And then the hands. Here's our body. Let's do the left leg. Our seam looks great. Now let's do the right leg. That one also looks good. Now we can just do our hands. This poor child is both hemming and hawing. He might even be fretting. Anyways, he's done. Let's put him on a base. Our third stolen is completed. We're going to call this one Ratrick. Hardest part would be the forearms, getting them into place. And that's definitely stretching. I'd say this is the easiest one out of all of them. Can't complain. Let's move on to our named models. Here's Nick's A1 good boy. Let's actually flip it over here. We're going to grab this half of him, and then we'll attach the back along the spine and the tummy along the, well, tummy. And then put the other half on, followed by his jaw. Now let's just cut this guy out first. Here's the right half of the pupper. Now let's do the back, which should just fit in kind of like so, more or less. Oops. Went in fine. Next we can do the stomach, which will go right along here. And more or less just fit in like that. Okay. That's what it looks like. I think actually it might be easier to put the jaw in now, as opposed to doing it after we've got the other half on. So let's add the jaw. Alright, our jaw is in. Now we can just put the other half of the body on. Okay. Next is all done. Put him on a base. Next is done, our goodest boy. The hardest part for Nyx was the lower jaw, getting that in there. Even though I put it in, attached it before I did the other half of the body, it still was slightly difficult to get it to nudge into place. Everything else was quite simple and quite easy. And that's it. Let's move on. Okay, the obedient wretch. We are going to cut out the back half of the skirt. We'll add the left leg and the right leg to it, and then mush it into the body. And then we will finish with the left arm and the right arm. Back half of the skirt. Our left leg is the shorter one with the rat crawling up it. It is going to glue right in there. Don't fiddle with it too much. It should correct itself when we sandwich the 2 bits together. So let's do the right leg, the longer one. Alright. I guess I could just grab it with the... Get my big dumb fingers out of the way. Alright, there we go. And the feet look like they will fit flat on the ground. But anyways, let's sandwich this with the rest of the body now. Alright. Legs ended up being closer together than I initially had them. Sandwiching did its job. Alright, left arm holding the rat. It should connect here as well. Shoulder looks good. Let's finish with our right arm, which should be petting the rat. Okay, obedient wretch is done. Our obedient wretch is completed. Quite a simple model. The hardest part for her would be if you didn't put the two halves of the skirt together before the plastic solidified, because it really did take me. I really was out of place initially and had to like squish them into place, and if you let that cure, it's going to be hard to fix. If you didn't do that, then the right arm, just because it's hovering above the rat and not really touching it, although you can probably just glue it to the rat. No one's going to complain. I'm not going to complain. All right, let's move on to our little ratty boys. Some Malifaux Rats. At least most of them are very simple. The numbers on the bottom actually align with the instructions. Hooray! So we'll start with rat number 2, rat number 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess let's look our instructions real quick. Alright, for rat number 1, we'll just combine the two halves, the base and the rat. For rat number 2, we'll just combine the two halves, the left and right side. For rat number 3, we'll combine the two halves, the left and right side. For rat number 4, we'll go ahead and add the head, then the left arm, and then the tail. I am not going to show individual models in between this because the majority of them are extremely simple, so we'll just review the whole set of 4. For rat number 1, we have our base. Now let's add the rat on top of it. Okay, he's all done. Number 2, we have the right side, which is the one with the tail. Now add the left side. There's our ratty boy. For our third rat, we've got the left side, which contains the head and the tail. Now let's add the right side. Okay, all done. Right, rat number 4, let's add the head first, right up here. Rat head added. Now the left front leg. Okay, left leg done. Last bit, the tail, which is not going to go right there on his butt. And the tail is looping around to his right side, but he's all done. Our 4 Malifaux Rats are done. We're going to call them Remy, Splinter, Rizzo, and Ratigan. Assign whatever names to whichever one. Yeah, hardest part was all in the 4th one. Just the tiny bits of the head and the left arm and the tail. Watch out for the tails in general, they're just quite fragile. But the nice thing is that out of all of them, only one of them was at any point slightly difficult. Now let's look at the whole box. The Hamelin Core box is done. Containing Hamelin, 3 stolen, 1 obedient wretch, 1 Nyx, and 4 Malifaux Rats. A lot of models in one box, and like 15 stones total or something, and that's not a ton of stones. The difficulty almost lied solely within Hamelin's big old plague cloud thing, although the tiny limbs on the stolen weren't exactly easy, and the one rat had its own difficult parts. But overall, I'd say a fairly easy box, especially if you have directions, which I'm giving to you. Yeah, not a whole lot to do here. I thought it was going to be a lot harder, but not nearly as many tiny bits as I was expecting for tiny miniatures. I'm going to call it a win. Anyways, I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Have a good night.